Welcome to In Conversation with Inside Perspective, the podcast with exceptional leaders talking about everyday leadership experiences. Let's jump in. So today we are here with Dominic Gourley. Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here. A consultant with human synergistics, and you are working with organisations all day long around leadership behaviour, human behaviour, organisational culture, and all of the stuff in between.
The full gamut. It's all the fun stuff, right? How people think, how they behave, how teams operate, through to how do organisations operate. Fascinating stuff.
It is fascinating. And it makes me think, you know, you're there helping these teams become better.
Yeah.
But growth is never a straight line. And so I'm sure that you see a lot of things that both help and get in the way of how teams are operating.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the biggest one that probably hinders is whatever they're doing today works for them at some level, or they wouldn't do it. Especially when it comes to coaching individuals.
Yes.
Right? They do what they do for a reason. It's worked up until this point. And especially if you're coaching, executives, senior leaders, they are successful. And so whatever they've done has worked for them, or at least works for them at a certain level. But the conversation I think we try to have with them is, does it work at some level or some point in time? Might it also come with a cost or a trade-off? And could there be a more effective way of going about things? And I think that is what kind of opens the door for people to just have a think about, is there another way?
Nice. Do you find that the people are receptive to that straight away, or is there some resistance?
There can definitely be some resistance on that very ground. And I think there's probably certain types where resistance will come up more. So when we work with leaders, we measure their thinking and behavior with a tool we call the LSI, and I know you're accredited in it as well, the Lifestyles Inventory, which measures different styles of thinking and behavior.
Yep.
The ones I see that get defended the most are probably conventional. Hey, we need rules and policies and procedures, and the world would be chaos without them. Competitive. Hey, we get the best performance, and perfectionistic is probably the three big ones I reckon that people will justify that it's useful for them, and probably try to justify that it doesn't come with a cost or a trade-off, but, we'll open that door.
It's so interesting, isn't it, when you talk about competitive, and I think what would be useful in a moment is to talk about competitive and perfectionistic, the link between them.
Sure.
But when I talk about competitive, first off, what I always hear is, but hold on, we want to win.
Totally. We do want to win. And winning is not a dirty word. And sometimes I think with our stuff, people get that message. Right? We want to win, but we want to win in the marketplace. We want to win as an organization. And the difference is that it's really about, from an individual level, it's about I need to stand out relative to those around me. So that's the person in the chair next to me, the team down the hallway, the office in the other state, or whatever it may be. And it can be a lot of energy.
Yes.
There can be a lot of passion and enthusiasm, and that's awesome. Don't let me talk you out of being passionate and enthusiastic. But I reckon a lot of it can be misplaced. We end up spending a lot of energy on fighting internal battles that don't actually help us go out and perform any better in the marketplace. And so it's lots of energy in those organizations, but it's misplaced.
100%. And so with somebody who is in favor of the competitive style, what is the fastest way that you find to bring them on board with this concept that I know both you and I agree with?
Oh, look, I think, and speaking from experience, so when I first did this thing many years ago, I joke I came out at the 94th percentile for competitive, and I thought,
wow.
Yeah, but I thought, whoa, I'm the best at being competitive. This is fantastic.
You would.
This is awesome. And here's the thing. Had it worked for me? Yes, it had.
Yeah.
In lots of ways, it worked for me. It had got me to a certain point in my career. There was a certain drive and ambition and determination that sat behind it. It totally helped. Did it also come with a cost and a trade-off? Yes, it did. And from a work point of view, that was probably, my former life, I worked in container shipping, and so it's a global business.
Amazing.
And so if you want to answer emails at 2 a.m, someone was emailing you at 2 a.m, and I'd put that pressure on, like only I could do it.
Yeah, only you.
No one else could do it. To the point where, and it sounds silly me saying this, because it was like a 30,000 person organization or something, multi-billion-dollar company. I honestly believed I couldn't take 2 weeks off or the whole place would go under.
Oh, wow.
And it sounds crazy. And of course, it's not true. But that's what I believed and what I kind of felt in my bones. And so there was that pressure, but there was also, and I remember saying to a manager at the time in like the annual appraisal or something, one of my key strengths was I could convince anyone to my idea or my way of thinking. And I was very proud of that. But really what I was saying is I could argue, and I wouldn't stop arguing, Even if I was wrong, it's like, well, technically, I could find some sort of reason to still be right somehow. And so here's the thing. Short term, it worked. I could rack up tactical victories.
Yep.
Get this decision to go my way, convince them on this. But the one that mattered, the strategically important one, they weren't with me because I didn't have the relationship, right? Because it burnt relationships. And so the one that mattered, I couldn't get them to come along on that. And so it's like, there's something in this, I'm concentrating on the wrong games, perhaps the wrong battles to win.
This is interesting.
It's the short-term win. And I think that's true generally of probably perfectionistic as well and competitive. It's the short-term win, but not the long-term one.
It's so interesting because I was relating from somebody who used to be relatively high perfectionistic.
Yes.
And if we put that in the language of the listeners, we are just talking about perfectionism here,
Yep.
And I had a similar belief at one point. You know what? I need to do all of this and I can't possibly go on leave because if I go away and leave this to someone else, what in the world is going to happen?
The place is going to be on fire.
I need to do this. And it's funny, isn't it? The same thought from a slightly different lens and it creates the same stuckness.
Well, and we know that, speaking of costs and trade-offs, it's a lot of pressure and stress and burnout can live there. And it also doesn't deliver better results. And I think this is the mistake people make is actually it doesn't even necessarily perform better either.
Isn't that interesting?
It can on a short-term basis. And it's probably better than apathy or something. I'll take it over apathy.
Sure.
But it doesn't necessarily help. I had an example of a organization that will remain nameless, but they do big tender responses and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a manager who would have to have the final word, and there was a nervousness about letting go.
Right.
And so the team had worked on it, but still had to come in and stayed up for 30 hours. It's like, are you doing your best work 26 hours into this? Probably not, right? But had to have the final kind of sign off and say, oh, that's much better now. And it's like, is it though? I don't know if it is. So I think we think it's better, but it's because it's our way rather than is it actually better.
It's really interesting. I know when I started to work on being less perfectionistic, really wanting to dial that down, I remember getting some feedback along the way. And one of my leaders at the time said to me, oh, wow, your leadership is so much better right now. And I remember thinking, oh, what? Doing less, not doing anything? Maybe, does that mean I don't have an opinion or it's better when I don't have an opinion? But actually, to your point, it was like, oh, it's not just always my way anymore.
Doing less but achieving more.
Right.
And I think the thing is though, and listeners can can think about this for themselves. In popular vernacular, we know these terms: competitive, perfectionistic. If you watch a interview with a sports person, or even business people for that matter, what led to your success, they'll say, I'm a real perfectionist, or I'm really competitive, or a real competitor. And we have those words. And I think in popular terminology, they don't have another concept that we talk about, which is called achievement or achievement thinking.
Nice.
And how that's different. Because I think if you don't have these concepts, then it's kind of not possible. Like if you don't have the words, how can you be, in a way? And so I'm on a bit of a mission. I'd love to popularize that term, and it comes from psychological literature and so on. But achievement thinking, achievement behavior, and it's similar. It's a next door neighbor.
Yes.
To perfectionistic and to competitive, but it's crucially different as well.
And so, what would be your description?
And how is it different? Would be, to me, achievement is about a pursuit of excellence, not perfection.
Nice.
Right? And so excellent is excellent. Excellent is not mediocre. And I say that because I know my perfectionists out there will be like, he said standards don't matter. I'm not saying standards don't matter. They do. We want excellent. But it doesn't have to be perfect. It's about being effective and moving on. Because I'll see, like with perfectionistic, the extra energy, time, focus, attention we put into something to get it to perfect could have been better invested elsewhere. And so it's really about a key achievement question is, where does my effort make the most difference?
Yes.
It's about self-set standards. What am I capable of? Rather than a relative one, which is competitive. Where do I stand relative to others? And so it's really a focus on performing at my best and the result will follow, rather than competitive as it's all about the result. My performance actually doesn't matter. So they would be happy to win the race even with a slow time because they got the result. Whereas a high achievement thinker would not be happy with that performance. Even though they won, they did not perform at their best.
And I often see the flip of that with achievement thinking as well is I didn't get the result, but I did my very best, and therefore that was more than enough. I'm happy with that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm happy with it. If I ran a PB, I'm happy with that. That's the best I've ever performed. That's a fantastic achievement. Right? And how do we keep growing and keep building on it?
Right, because
but it's myself, because in competitive, my self-worth rides on the outcome. And so it's about me. I'm a winner or a loser. It's quite black and white.
Whereas in achievement, how would that sound different?
It's about my performance. And so and really it's about there's a perfecting but not perfect, and it's different. Right? So we're striving towards that. We want to improve and get better and move towards that, but it's knowing that we never will be. And so we can actually therefore learn and grow, and high achievers want feedback. They want to learn, they want to grow. Whereas I think in competitive, it's like I need to beat others, and perfectionistic, it's really about I need to appear perfect because nothing and no one is.
Interesting.
Right, so I need to appear that way. So actually, I don't really want your feedback.
Yes.
Because that would indicate I'm not perfect, and that's actually a threat to me.
It's very interesting. As you're saying this, I'm thinking about Ben Crow, who, coaches and mentors a lot of elite athletes. And he often says this, they are not their outcomes or their results. They are the performance of that day. And as long as that is at their best today, that is not who they are.
Yeah, I love Ben's stuff. And that's a common belief in perfectionism is I am what I do.
Yes.
So it's not just, that project failed or there's a typo and that thing. That's me on the PowerPoint. And it's a reflection of like who I am. Like, that's heavy. And like
that's
I almost
huge.
Think of it as like the tightly wound fist, like that is me up there. And it's interesting because Ben coached or was the mindset coach for Ash Barty.
Yes.
And I remember, I'm pretty sure it was after Ash Barty won the Wimbledon in the tennis. And in the post-match interview, they asked her, about her performance, and she said, I really had to challenge myself against her today. And I thought it was an interesting use of words because it was about challenging myself, playing to my standards.
Yes.
Right? And if Ash Barty plays to Ash Barty's standards, the result comes. But it was about performing at her best, and you have an opposition. You have to play against them, obviously. But
yes.
But the game is against herself, first and foremost.
And how often it is, because it's so often the chatter in our mind that we're racing against.
Well, that's right. And going down the tennis route, I don't know if you saw the Roger Federer commencement speech at, I think it was Dartmouth College. And he talked about perfection, that perfection doesn't exist. And he talked about in that of being able to let go.
Yes.
So if you shank the shot or even if you hit the overhead slam that's going to be on ESPN highlights that evening, you've got to it's just a point, and you've got to be able to let it go so you can fully commit to the next one. Whereas I think those highly competitive tennis players, of which there are many successful ones,
yes,
but they're also the ones who are smashing the rackets and playing themselves out of the game. And Federer, I think it was in a different interview I saw with him, actually talked about, because we forget that early in his career, he was the guy who was smashing rackets and so on.
Yeah, right.
We all forget that. And he's talked about how, I was losing matches I should have won because I was playing myself out of the game. Because I get in my own head and get so upset about, the shot I missed or something.
Yeah.
That I'm then not actually fully able to commit to the rest of the game.
And it's so true, isn't it? I'm thinking if I bring that back to my work, I have noticed how in the past I might have been trying to win every shot, and therefore, of course, you miss some, and then it's almost like, the plates are spinning and they're all dropping, rather than what are the key plates to keep moving, and which ones, if they drop, can I go and pick them back up later?
Great. So that's that. Where does my effort make the most difference? And
right.
Sometimes I talk to people, when I'm coaching them, of life is made up of crystal balls and rubber balls. Have you heard this one?
I think I have, but please tell us.
So crystal balls and rubber balls. So, some are rubber balls. Some things in life are rubber balls and they'll bounce back if you drop them.
Yep.
Some are crystal balls and they don't bounce back.
Yeah.
Often, work is actually a rubber ball. Often. Not always maybe, but often. Whereas things like health.
Yep.
Relationships, like with family.
Yep.
Even your own state of mind, often crystal balls.
Yeah.
And if we drop those, they shatter. They don't necessarily come back. And so, I think it's that healthy balance of we want to perform, and back to like winning is not a dirty word. Ash Barty wants to win Wimbledon, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But the path there is our own performance rather than benchmarking either off and possibly high standards. I'm not going to shank a single shot ever. It's not going to happen in a tennis match.
Right.
Or in life. Or a relative benchmark of where do I compare to everyone else. And use that as my yardstick.
The other concept that's coming up for me as we're talking is this really favorable thought out there at the moment, the 1%ers. Actually there was this real wave of, the 1%ers don't matter, like really focus on the big stuff, don't sweat the small stuff.
Yep.
And it feels like we then went full circle and people started saying, oh no, hold on, the 1%ers really matter. Like, I don't want to use the actual example in my head because it'll signify who I'm thinking of here. But, there was this really small example where they changed, I don't know, let's say the pens in the room. And it's like suddenly, that made so much difference. And I'm like, where is this balance between the 1%ers making a huge difference and actually staying focused on what is really making the biggest amount of impact?
Look, I don't know if there's a straight answer to that because I think it depends what we mean by the 1%ers. Like, I agree with we want to constantly be improving and looking for how we can do things differently and smarter and better. Yes. But is it ever going to be 100%? No. And so I think there's a difference between those, and it's like the small things add up, and it's probably, the small things add up, and so it's doing the little things do matter, but it's not sweating the small stuff either.
Yes.
Because I think we can get so caught up on things that don't matter that that's back to the spinning plates. There's 3 plates that actually matter. But we're trying to spin 7, which actually means you drop the 3 that do matter.
I'm almost hearing you say it's intention. You didn't say that, but that's kind of what
attention.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, nice.
And being deliberate, which is maybe a synonym for the same thing. But being deliberate on where we spend our energy, effort, and focus, because it's a limited resource. We don't have unlimited time and so on. So what really matters, and being quite intentional to your word about that.
Where does mastery fit into all of this?
Achievement. Mastery, because that's that. They want to master. It's not about being perfect, but I want to master, and so it's moving towards it. I had on the podcast I do former naval aviator, so like a pilot, right?
Cool.
And he was in the roulette, so at the display team, where they fly wing to wing and so on.
Wow.
And it was interesting. He talked about perfecting, but never perfect. And you can imagine that it's very, very high performance, very dangerous, what they do. And they would always, after every flight, they'd come and they'd debrief every flight, right, of what worked, what didn't work, what would we do different next time. And you had to be able to be open to that feedback and be straight up on where the opportunities were and so on, to always keep moving towards it. But they knew that perfect was not possible. But it was about perfecting different.
And it feels like such an important example because, lives would be on the line. If you mess that up badly, and they're still reminding us perfect is not achievable.
It's not achievable, but we think it is, in less high stakes circumstances. I say that though, less high stakes, but when you're the one in it, it can feel high stakes,
True.
Like, because if you put the scale from, stubbing your toe or something through to catastrophic, disaster, most work issues probably don't get past a 4. If we're really honest, on that scale of things, they wouldn't get past a 4, but they feel like a 9,
don't they?
They feel like a 9. Oh my God, if this thing goes out, it's not fully finished. Oof.
My whole career's riding on this, my name, all of
go
those.
Under. I can't take a week off or this whole place will go under. And that's why, again, perfectionism is not as effective because, in that example, we'll sit, wait, delay to try and get something perfect. That will never be perfect. And so rather than taking initiative, moving forward, being on version 5 perhaps by the time they've released version 1, they'll sit and delay and hesitate. Because really another key difference is, I think, for my perfectionists out there, it's about minimizing mistakes rather than maximizing success.
Can you tell us more about that? Because that's critical.
Sure. So there's a focus because it's a risk, being risk adverse, really, right? So I'm going to minimize mistakes, make sure nothing goes wrong. So I'm going to be on top of every detail and so on. And you could argue if nothing goes wrong, then it goes right. And there is truth in that. And that's why it can be effective and it does work at some level and it's often rewarded, right, in organizations. But it's a different energy. It's a nervous energy. It's a worry, right? Rather than how do we get it right and move forward, right? And embrace a bit of calculated risk.
It's interesting, isn't it? We talk a lot about organizations that are really successful, experimenting, and there may only be 1 in 50 experiments that actually work. And, this is what innovation truly looks like. It's a bit messy. But the truth is many organizations are not willing to have that level of experiment.
I love that. I reckon organizations should experiment more. All of us should more. And I mean like genuine experiments, because we've all been there. I'm sure you've seen this. Like, we're going to run the pilot, but it's already decided that it's going ahead before the pilot even started.
Yeah.
So it's not a genuine kind of thing. So it's either the decision's already been made and this is kind of involvement theater, or like, or it never gets off the ground. We shoot it down before it. And I really think we should run more genuine experiments, which is, hey, we don't know. We're going to change this process. Here's what we think's going to happen, but we don't know for sure. And so we're going to run an experiment and we're going to do it for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a limited time. And at the end of it, we're going to review, and this is how we'll know if it's working or not. And genuinely doing that. And, hey, maybe it went the wrong way. Actually, it was slower when we did it that way. Cool, now we know.
Right.
Because there's a lot of reckoning out there, like a lot of fights inside organizations are, we're both trying to predict the future, and neither of us have a crystal ball. We don't know. And it's something, this is the arguing thing that I was talking about earlier for myself. One of the things I do for myself is like, do I know that for sure, or do I just reckon?
Nice.
Like that's my opinion. I think this font's going to be better than that one, but I don't know. That's just a preference thing. So do I know for sure, or do I just reckon? Run an experiment. Why don't we find out? Why don't we find out?
I'm really resonating with two things that you've just said there, because the first is, so often the perfectionism has been like up here to the point we're actually now deciding, did we put the right chocolates on the table? Like the whole program has, or whatever the initiative was, has been, dissected within an inch of itself. So to your point, it's more than ready to go.
Yep.
And then I'm kind of going, so what is it that makes us so adverse or like risk adverse?
It's risky. It's risky. It's safer if I just, if I'm on top of everything.
Why do we have to be safe? Like, do you see where I'm trying to, I'm like, ooh, what's underneath that?
Well, I mean, it goes back to a bunch of things, I think. One is that I am what I do. I need to appear this way to others, and so it's really like, because it's also like, it holds us back from giving things a go. Like, I won't try that, there's a hobby or something I want to start, but I won't do it because I don't know if I'll be great at it, so I won't do it. And so it's kind of sad in a way. Like, I think we miss out on a lot of happiness in life by doing it as well, because we won't take on opportunities because they're risky. Doing anything new is inherently kind of risky. And I think it's just people are scared to fail, really. I mean, it's really as simple as that. Like, what does that say about me? Because that is me.
I feel like we also go back to the comparison piece. We start something new and we compare ourselves to somebody who's probably been doing it for 15 years.
Right.
And then we're like, oh, no, I'm not very good at this. It's like, well, where did they start?
Well, you don't see it. I mean, that's the difference. They talk about, the overnight success that was 20 years in the making, And so you haven't seen all of that beforehand. And so you're comparing it to someone else. Yes. And I think, there's that pressure people put on themselves of like, I'm going to be immediately good at things. And it's why, like, if we go back to organizations, you'll see people get promoted but still do their old job. Do you know what I mean? So it's like the sales guy who gets promoted to be sales manager, but it's still hitting the phones because they were really good at that. And I know I'm really good at that. And now this new thing, like leading the team, I don't know if I'm good at that. So I'm nervous about that. So I'm going to go back to what I've always done. I'm going to keep doing the task, keep doing the thing. And so we'll see a lot of technical experts can fall into that trap because I'm really good at the technical stuff.
Yes.
And in their defense, often organizations promote them because of, hey, you're the best sales guy we have, so you're promoted. And then don't actually support them and set them up for a very different skill set. Well, no wonder. Like, flip, so I've been sort of thrown in the deep end here. I'm not sure if I can swim or not, so I'm going to go back to the shallow end where I know I'm safe.
It's a good point. I saw some stats like about 2 years ago, and they've just stuck in my head because it shocked me then, and it still shocks me now. They say that many leaders go up to 10 years without any formal training.
Is that right?
I'm like, how 10 years? Like, how do we expect people to be at their best when we're not investing in their skills?
It's like this sports team that just shows up on Saturdays.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to all be formal training necessarily. Like, it doesn't have to be off at the workshop, though. I think there's definitely a place for that and for coaching. I mean, it's what you and I both do. And there's definitely value in that. And how do you do it day to day on the job?
Yep.
I mean, like, most of the things I know, if I think about over my career and how did I learn things, most of it is from on the job experience, right?
100%.
You got put in charge of this thing when you weren't quite ready to be in charge of it, but you did it anyway, and you hit some guardrails, but you got through and you grew from it. And so do we do that at work? And there's probably an embarrassment almost, or a hesitation to do that for people, but particularly if someone's new in a role, like, or even if they're not new in a role, I take that back. It's everyone.
Yeah.
And because there's an assumption even that people get to a senior level and it's like, oh, well, now they're like done and dusted. Like, they don't need any more development. They're a fully formed leader. And I think there's always, that's like, crushing the gym for 6 months or for years even, but now I stop and don't go for 5 years. Well, guess what? You get out of shape.
Well, and it goes back to growth is not a straight line, and it doesn't stop. There's always another level.
There's always another level. And we're not a fixed state. It's not like, well, I did that thing, now I'm done.
Yeah,
like
never
I
done.
am now an effective leader. Like it's not set in stone. And that I think is the powerful thing that we do and what coaching does is, because sometimes I'll hear leaders where they think they're kind of a fixed state. And I've seen it before where you come in and a leader will say, well, I'm direct. That's just who I am. And what they're saying is, well, the world has to change to suit me. Like, hey, I'm direct. You all have to learn to deal with that because that's who I am. And direct's awesome. I'm all for direct. Let's be clear. But we can be respectfully straight rather than the hammer of truth.
100%.
And so the coaching for them is then, cool, let's be direct. Direct's awesome, but how can you do it with respect and do it in a way where people will actually listen versus being the hammer of truth? Because the hammer of truth's easy.
Yes.
I can give, well, as long as you don't care too much about their feelings. But it takes zero skill. I can hammer you with a piece of feedback.
Yep.
But it's not effective because you're not going to listen. Or I might be able to get you to comply, but you're not going to be committed to whatever it is. I can make you do something, especially if I'm your boss. I can make you do it, but you won't be committed to doing it. You'll do what you have to do, but no more.
Which is never the aim as a leader. We're wanting to motivate
people. 60% out of people.
Right.
Or it's a pass. But that's a huge drag on the organization. If you think of performance left on the table, we've got a 40% drag from how we're leading.
Instead of achievement where we can actually, really get that towards 100.
Open it up. And probably the flip side of that, if we want to unlock achievement in others, so people use their initiative, we go up, we pursue excellence, make decisions, take risks, solve problems. We need a leader who encourages that in others, right? And so that's that kind of, leader as coach kind of stuff of how do you develop that in others? Well, you help them think for themselves. So rather than spoon feeding them the answer, you help them think with a good question. And this is the other trade-off of, that perfectionist, like, I think my answers are pretty good. And I do, I kind of think I'm right. But it's not going to be if you become the answer person, then they're always going to come to you for whatever the answer is. And you can become the easy button Like, oh, I'm struggling with this thing. I don't know what to do. Carolyn, hit the easy button. What should I do here? And you'll tell me.
And you do, because as perfectionists, you get
value.
Wait. Right.
Can't
value
wait
in
to
that.
tell you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this can be the challenge. We talked about what gets people stuck is the challenge can be in shifting it. Others, it can be uncomfortable or new for the people around you too. So I coached a leader who was a recovering perfectionist, perhaps like yourself. But she wanted to change. She wanted to do something different, and she's quite passionate about it. And she talked about, she wanted to empower the team more and push decisions downwards more because it tended to bottleneck up to her. And so we did an exercise called the delegation tree, which effectively just splits it into different levels. So there's kind of full delegation, or I'm going to do it, but in between it's kind of let's do it together.
Yep.
You do it, but brief me before you take action. Like there's different levels to it. And did it as a team. So they got all the decisions that are made in the team. Where do they fit in this tree? Do they sit with the manager? Do they sit with you entirely? Is it somewhere in between? Mapped it and then compared what they had. And it was a great conversation.
Wow.
Because she's sitting there like, no, you can run with this decision. But they're sitting there like, no, she wants to be involved. Like she loves making the decision on that. Like, no, I don't. You keep asking me, so I tell you, but I don't actually want to be involved.
Interesting.
And so it was a way to just get clarity
Yep.
on what should fit where, to challenge. Perhaps I'm like, you know what, maybe I could push that one, down more. Like maybe I don't need to be involved if I challenge myself. So they did this. Beautiful discussion. But guess what happened on Monday? They came in, knock, knock, knock. What should I do here? And she had actually stuck it. They had the tree that they drew, and she stuck it on the wall next to her desk. And it was as much as self-management devices. Hold on. We discussed that last week. That's a decision that you can make, but, let me know afterwards. So I trust you to do it. And so, because she couldn't wait to give them the answer, like she was used to it and, she has an opinion, but it was a self-management tool to just pause and say, no, we agreed. Like that's a decision you can make. I don't need to be involved. I trust you to make it.
Awesome. And so if you've got somebody that is wanting to make a change, like you've just shared a great example, what would be the best advice for somebody going, oh my goodness, I've recognized myself in that perfectionistic space or the competitive space. I want to get more into that achievement mindset that we've been talking about. What would be your top tip?
A few of them. So one would be get clear on what actually is the objective. Like what actually is the objective? Because in perfectionistic, it tends to just go up forever. Yes. Whatever it is not enough. It's never enough. And so what actually is the objective? Oh, we need to solve for this, this, and this. And once it's there, move on. And that will be hard. That will be hard. But it's having the clarity before you start of what actually is the objective. So you know when you've met it. Otherwise, it will continuously go up. It's the same with your team members as well. So with the example from a second ago, it's being clear on what is the objective look like that we need to actually achieve here so they can self-assess as well.
Nice.
Otherwise, they never know, and so it's never enough, again. So be really clear on that. It's the 2% changes. It's where that question we had earlier, where does my effort make a difference?
Yes.
Where does my effort make a difference? It is not everywhere. And it can't be. And you can't be as effective trying to do everything as you can be doing the things that really matter well. So an exercise can be take 10 minutes out to think about where does my effort truly make the most difference? Is it doing the task? Is it coaching the team? Is it this task over that one? What are the ones that actually matter? It's getting comfortable with a bit of risk, so there's this calculated risk. So it's not reckless, which people might have interpreted or heard. It's not about being reckless, but it's about embracing a bit of risk, right? So it's that how do we get it right, not how do we make sure nothing goes wrong.
Love that.
Right. And so embracing those. And it's probably, on a few things like we talked about, it can feel like a 9 as far as the seriousness of it. And so it's almost asking yourself the question of like, will I still be thinking about this in a day, a week, a month, 6 months, a year?
Mm-hmm.
If you're still going to be thinking about whatever this thing is in a year's time, that is important. We need to focus on that because that's something serious. But if it's like by tomorrow or by next week or even by next month, like I'm not going to be thinking about this again, it's probably okay to like move past that one.
Nice.
It's like good. We want to do a good job, a cracking job even, but it does not have to be perfect.
I know one of the things that even now, years on from wanting to address my perfectionistic, I notice sometimes just that, that temptation to slip back into old habits. And the form that it takes with me is the oh, come on, you've got to do your best here. And it becomes this self-pressure that is actually distracting, not enhancing. I've learned now as soon as I see that or I get feedback, I recognize it. But I'm wondering for that person earlier in their journey, how do they notice that they might have just reverted back to old behavior?
I mean, for one, that's human as well, just to put that out there,
Yes.
Let's not be perfectionistic about not being perfectionistic. That's human. We're all going to go there sometimes, like I talked about competitive for me in particular, like my funny bone can get tickled and I know when it is, but I'm aware of it. And so I'm sort of on the watch out for it. So it's like, ooh, I can feel my funny bone getting tickled and I'm sliding into that territory. And so one of them is probably, what are those signs? Like recognize those signs for you of like, when do I know I'm going down there? And it might be, when I'm overwhelmed and I've got the 23 plates I'm trying to spin at the same time, like, and I'm juggling all these balls and I can feel the overwhelm building up, and maybe it's the heart rate, maybe it's the self-talk, and it can become a bit muddled or jumbled or something. I've got sort of 2 or 3 conversations going on with myself at the same time.
Yep.
So it's recognizing those, and then it's getting a bit of a circuit breaker in.
Yeah.
So, and detaching a little. And that's that kind of question of, will I still be thinking about this in a day, a week, a month?
That. Yeah.
Where does my effort make a difference? Like a bit of a circuit breaker of just like, okay, we've recognized it. How do we hit the timeout button? And then get some distance with the topic, whether that be like from a point of view. So you can ask yourself, like, if this was my friend right now, what would I say to them? Or if this was my direct report, what would I say to them? Because often that conversation sounds different.
True.
Like I ask people that in coaching, like, what would you say if this was your direct report? Oh, well, for them, I'd say, like, give your best effort, but like, nothing can be perfect. And it's like, so why is it different for you? And so, sometimes I advise people, like, when you're having that moment, whip out your phone, put it on voice memos, and talk, but as if you're talking to your best friend or your colleague. And what would you say to them? And then listen to it back.
Nice.
And so it could be that point of view, or like if someone else was doing this job, what would they do here, or what have I seen others do? It could be time. So that's that one. Like in a year's time, does this still matter? Or if this was in the future, or if it was in the past, like get a different time perspective, or physical. So it could literally be stepping back and seeing it differently, or they talk about getting on the balcony and kind of observing, like, what's going on if I observe from a sort of higher level perspective, if you like.
Yeah, nice.
And I think it just takes you out of, because when we're being overwhelmed like that, or we're kind of slipping into those old not so helpful habits, it's it can feel like the situation's right on top of us.
Yes.
Like, oh my God,
there.
this thing, it's right on top of me. I'm kind of being crushed by it. And so I'm probably reacting rather than choosing a response to it. And so just detaching a bit and having that different perspective just allows us to like get away from the situation being on top of us, seeing it from a different angle. And I think it just opens up then, okay, I can see, like, I'm going down this road and maybe I need to change paths.
Nice.
Right? Not always as easy said is done, particularly in the moment, if like it's happening right now.
Yes.
For, there's a peak moment right now, and I'll get that where it's like I can feel myself going down there, and I still go down there anyway, even though I'm aware, and you pick yourself afterwards. You're like, oh, maybe that wasn't the best thing I did just then. But even that is all good. Like I think of that as that's like a rep for the brain.
Yep.
That builds the muscle, and then maybe next time, or maybe it's 10 more times of doing that. But eventually, you get
10 reps. That's what I have to do at the gym.
and then you get stronger. Maybe it's in the moment. Hey, we can course correct in the moment, and maybe eventually we never even start down that road.
Yep.
But I think just that awareness builds reps.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And so as we start to move towards a close for today, I'm wondering, is there anything else that we want to leave listeners with around these 3 styles, particularly achievement and their mindset?
Well, I think it starts with that. It's not set in stone. You are not a perfectionist. And I will hear a lot of people say, I'm a perfectionist, or even I'm competitive. You are not a perfectionist. You might have learned to think or behave in some of those ways, but it is not innate to who you are. It can change. If we've learned one way, we can actually learn another.
Yeah.
But you've got to care enough about doing it. And that's why we open with the question around, how does it work for you? Because it does in some ways. And these are often ones that get rewarded inside organizations.
100%.
But does it also come with a cost and a trade-off?
Mm-hmm.
And I gave a work-related example earlier, but the cost or trade-off might be in life as well.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm kicking goals at work, but I'm working 23 hours a day and I haven't seen my kids, So the trade-off might be elsewhere, or I'm stressed out or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go back. So you're not set in stone, right? Does it come with a cost and trade-off? And it can be different. And it's probably to look up. And we can share some stuff maybe in some show notes or something around what is a bit of that difference. And how do you just make that little shift? Because it's not totally different. They're next door neighbors to one another, right? But it's a bit of a mindset shift between the two.
Yeah. Amazing. I know that for me, as we've had this conversation, it's been such a great reminder that I am not the job or the task or, and I think that's something that we sometimes get caught up in, even when we know this stuff, right?
Totally.
And I think, that's certainly my takeaway for today. And I'm sure that our listeners have more than that they're taking away. I think so much wisdom shared around how these styles and how these things come to life. They're not traits, they're not labels, they're just things we're doing, and therefore we can change it.
Totally.
It's so powerful. Dom, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I would just I know you mentioned earlier, you have a podcast called Culture Bites.
That's right.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, probably listeners of this are probably people who would be interested in our podcast.
I think
too,
so.
It's a similar theme around Culture Bites. So it's looking at kind of leadership and culture theory, but building it into everyday insights. So how can people use it? Much like this conversation. And I mean, we've been going a fair while now. We're up to, we must be around 250 episodes. So there's a back catalogue for you. If you're tuning in now, there's a back catalogue for you. But all kinds of conversations, which really started out many years ago from this kind of conversation we were having internally.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of a young consultant at that point and learning the trade. And so I would have these kinds of conversations with others. And I learned so much. And I was like, you know what would be cool? Like, I bet others could learn from this stuff too. And so we started recording them, and then it must be 6-7 years later or something.
Amazing. I know I certainly listened to them, so I'm happy to endorse 250 episodes as well listening, well worth listening to. So yeah, we will make sure that there's a link in the notes for that as well. But
and thank you so much for having me on the show.
It has been an absolute pleasure. So much wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you.